Like I was telling someone yesterday, well, congrats, you started with $1,000 and now you have 8,000, and you did that in the space of a year.
And now,
Aye, I'm the captain now.
coming to you from the K2 Studios in San Diego, California.
This sounds great. You sound amazing.
I always sound amazing.
It's the world famous
Everybody's hitting off like BFFs.
Kris and Kristine Show.
Hey, what's happening? How are you doing today? Thank you so much for being here. And I am Kris.
And I'm Kristine, and welcome to episode 172 of the Kris and Kristine Show.
Oh, fantastic. How you doing today? How was your weekend, babe?
Well, it's been a busy one. I think that I finally am just getting into relaxation mode. Unfortunately, it's now 8:30 p.m. on a Sunday night, which is a little late to finally be able to start relaxing. That's the bad thing about weekends when I've worked on a Saturday is I literally only get one day.
One day off, you mean?
Yeah, one day of relaxation. Unlike you, Mr. Man over here, who only works 4 days a week and gets 3 days off every week.
Wait a second. Those are hard working 4 days, let me tell you.
Yep, and so are my hardworking 6 days.
I'm not comparing. I'm not saying it's
I
not.
am. I'm comparing.
Well,
I do 2 whole days more of work than you every week. And yet you're the one that's like, oh, I'm so tired all the time. And I'm like, dude, you only work 4 days a week.
Well, it's probably because I'm getting older, I noticed. When the older you get, the more tired you get more frequently. I took a nap later this afternoon / early evening, and it made me realize something is that I love taking naps. I just hate waking up from them.
But your naps are not real naps. Your naps are like, you set an alarm for 7 minutes, and I think it's the dumbest thing on the face of the planet. Like, who in the world takes a 7-minute nap and is like, oh, I feel refreshed?
No, it's not the 7 minutes. What it is, it's the 7 times I hit snooze on that 7-minute nap, which adds up to like an hour or so.
Okay, so research has been done on that, and it's actually, it takes you like 10 minutes to actually get into a deep sleep. And so if you set your alarm or your timer or anything on a frequency of like 7 to 10 minutes or 7 to 9 minutes, you actually wake up more tired because your body hasn't been able to get into that restful sleep yet. So it's basically like teasing your body. So it's what you're doing is actually making yourself more tired. So it would be more beneficial for you to take a single 30 or 40-minute nap versus to take 4 10-minute naps interrupted by some type of a timer. That's research proven. I'm going to find the source.
Well, you are very smart. You are the doctor in the relationship.
I am.
And the house. And I do like your idea of actually taking longer naps. I remember one time, this is when I was working, I think early mornings, like I'd be at work at like 4 in the morning. And I decided one afternoon, I'm going to take a nap, right? And for some reason, I woke up from my nap and it looked like it was morning sunrise, not sunset, because it was like in the afternoon. And so I totally freaked out and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm late for work. Holy crap. Because like it was 5 in the afternoon, sun setting or whatever, like a summer day or something like that or whatever it was. And I was like freaking out. I totally had a panic attack. Thought I was late for work because I took a longer nap than the quickie nap that I normally would do,
That's so bizarre. I don't know if I've ever really done that, although that sounds like some really good sleep if you wake up and you felt like you slept all night long. I love a good nap.
Speaking of which, yeah, I do too. But I think because I'm trying to cram a nap into a short time frame, like, oh, I've got 10 minutes to take a nap. Let me just set my timer for 9 minutes and get it done. But then I wake up and I'm like, the thing's buzzing. I'll just hit the repeat feature on the iPhone for the repeat the timer. So I go back. It's like their snooze button for
I know,
naps.
and that's what I'm telling you. It actually is going to wear you out more than if you just set it to 30 minutes to begin with.
I think I hit the snooze button about 5 times this afternoon.
Yeah, you did.
So I feel great now, though. I feel good now, So here we are, babe.
I know, and as opposed to me, I'm tired. I've been doing other stuff all day. But I will say, after I got back from work yesterday, I dozed off on the couch and I woke up and I was like drooling. It was like a deep nap.
That's hot. No, that's hot. You know, there's been many times I come from work at like 4 in the morning, and I see you on the couch. TV's
I never
on,
stay there that late. It's like 1:30.
whatever it is. I see you on the couch and I'm like, hun, you wait up for me? Huh? What? Yeah. And then Clover looks at me like, hey, Dad, what's up?
Mom didn't put me to bed again.
Yeah. Bald enough to be out here again. You know? It's like little kids, like little running around the house feral. And they're like supposed to be put to bed and they're out playing, you know, eating Skittles and like, you know, Fruit Loops in the middle of the night.
You better watch it. You better watch it over there, mister. You're going to find yourself in a whole world of hurt. I do occasionally fall asleep on the couch. It's normally if I've been like doing wedding stuff and I'll have my, I have my personal computer that I bring downstairs in the evenings and I'll sit there until the battery's almost dead. And then, listen to me.
Hey,
Sorry,
speak
I'm
of
yawning.
tired. Speaking of naps.
And then I'll just like doze off. I am very tired tonight and it's going to be so you were asking how I'm doing. It is peak wedding season right now. And we are in the last, month and a half of peak wedding season. And then we go on a break. So I go on a break. So I have weddings through the end of October. And then I don't have another wedding. I have one in December. And then I don't have another one until March, actually.
Wow.
So it's like a 3 or 4 month break. We did this last year where I took a spring break where it was like January, February, March kind of break. But it's much needed. And I actually kind of like that pace where, it's like 2 or 3 months of super busy and then like springtime, a couple of months of super busy. And then we have our off-peak season, which gives our family time to like reset. It gives me time to not be, so busy on the weekends. And yeah. So,
well, do you think that perhaps maybe when you do think we break it up like that, where you have like the section where you're physically doing a lot of the physical wedding stuff and you have the downtime, you're not doing that part of stuff, but you're doing more of like the
planning.
Yeah, the planning and the organizing and the getting the brides happy and figuring out their mood boards and what colors they want and all that great stuff.
That's pretty accurate about what happens during that time because it means that I'm not out at the venues on the weekends, but it does mean that I'm holding a lot of my planning meetings. And so you are right that it is around like a year-round kind of business. And so that's how we're able to make it a sustainable business model is because I have clients that book me 12 or 18 months in advance. And so then like their payments for wedding planning are kind of broken up because it's progressive work. So for example, I have a couple of clients that are getting married in June and August. And so especially like after I get through my weddings, like now in October, then if you think November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June. So it's like 8-month countdown. So once we start getting in that 6 to 8 month countdown, then we're doing a lot of planning activities where it's like finalizing guest list, getting drafts of their invitations, working with caterers, starting to work on floor plan and all of the logistics and all of those little things. And so it is a little bit tough right now when I do have a couple of clients that we're wrapping up their planning contracts right now in the midst of peak floral season too.
Right, yeah.
So like today, I had a timeline that I was finishing up. I had actually 2 timelines because I have back-to-back weddings one weekend. So 2 timelines I was finishing up, a seating chart that I was getting back to a client on, communicating with 2 separate caterers, and then also getting out a floral proposal for a March bride.
Wow,
and
look at
following
you.
up on another June bride. So it's just like, it's kind of a crazy time of year on top of just like the regular pace. But I got to go help my friend Molly out with her business yesterday, so I didn't have my own wedding.
So Molly actually does her own wedding planning or floral stuff for weddings.
Florals, yeah.
Okay, just florals, nothing else?
Yeah, Molly's Acre Floral Design.
Okay, great. So she's helped you out a few times with your stuff. So you go out and help her out. That's great. You guys work together like that. Now, did she tip you or pay you out to go out and do that, or did you volunteer your time?
Well, I was freelancing, so it's an hourly rate. But yeah, that's what we do for each other is, you like pay out for an hourly rate. And then she had 2 weddings yesterday. So she and one other gal were setting up at a different wedding. And she sent me and another gal down to the other one to set up. She'd done everything in advance. And so so it was great. I mean, it wasn't a super, super long day, but it was tiring because it's been so hot down here.
Oh my goodness. It's funny. We had that if you remember in the last episode, we were talking about the Hurricane Hillary, which made it really cool and calm and kind of tropical-ish down here a little bit, but we are back to the desert heat here. It was funny. I went in my truck the other day and I took a picture. I didn't think it was accurate because it said on the thermometer on the truck that it was 108 degrees outside.
Nah.
But I think what happens is because the truck was sitting in the sun and the thermometer or whatever in the truck is under the hood, which probably collects heat too. So it's probably closer to 100, 102, but still 102 is pretty hot, I would think too. So it's getting pretty warm out here. I know that this time of year, as we are now into September, it's probably, at least early September, it's probably the hottest time of the year here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I do have 2 things that I did want to share that have been kind of exciting happening in my life.
Oh, some good news. What you got, babe?
Well, the first one is, and they're both related to our wedding business. So the first one is this week I officially released my first ever ebook.
Whoa, congratulations. That's amazing.
I'm a published author. Thank you so much.
Look at that. Who published you?
Myself.
There you go. Hey, that's the best publisher there is.
Yeah. So I wrote a book. And it's the Bride's Ultimate Guide to Wedding Planning, how to plan your wedding, your dream wedding without breaking the bank. And so the idea behind it is to take all of these years of expertise that I have and put it in the hands of couples that are in the midst of wedding planning. And it's 8 chapters, very easy to consume. It's about 60 pages, but it's all like super practical stuff and with downloadable resources, and it's $9.99.
It's like $10. What a deal.
Yeah, and you can find it at kristinesmithdesigns.myshopify.com.
I'll put a link to it in the show notes of this episode. Look down.
Absolutely.
It'll be right there for you, right there. And then, first thing on the list will be Kristine's book.
The other thing.
Wait, there's more?
Yes, but wait, there's more. I also created, I call it the Wedded Bliss Toolkit. And so what that is for $4.99, if you're an engaged couple that's in the midst of wedding planning, you're getting ready to meet with all of these different vendors like a caterer, wedding venue, hair and makeup artist, photo and video. I get questions all the time from my clients like, what questions should I ask? Or is there anything that I should be remembering to bring up during my conversation? And so over the years, I've been, don't forget this, don't forget this. And it's like, well, what if I just created a list of essential questions to ask each of these vendors to make sure that couples are really clear on, different types of rules and regulations or contract provisions for each of these different vendors. So the Wedded Bliss Toolkit is its 6 sets of essential questions for different vendor categories to ask before signing a contract. So included is a list of questions for wedding venues when you're interviewing them and finding out.
Like the time you asked that couple about the venue they got where he said about the music and they couldn't have no more than a boombox speaker on their pool deck past 9 p.m.
Right, but they didn't know to ask that before when they went to go tour. So, the venue is like, oh yes, we love to have weddings here. Well, on my list of essential questions is, are there any noise ordinances for your property that would restrict us from being able to have either a live musician, a DJ, or do we have to shut the music off at a certain time of night? So that's one question. that a couple might not think to ask. Another one is like, are there any hidden fees like cleanup fees and things like that? Another one would be, is there a specific list of vendors that we have to work with if we book your property?
What was that place in La Jolla that was really picky? There was a couple places. I don't remember which one it was exactly, but there's a few places.
They're very selective with their vendors. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, different ones are. And so when you're an engaged couple and you go and you fall in love with a place, it can be so easy to get caught up in the emotion that you don't ask these really important questions.
Of course. It's like when you buy a car and like you're so excited with the new car that you don't look at all the fine print. Like my Z, I realized after looking at the paperwork afterwards, I got screwed twice.
On the warranty, right?
It was, I bought extra warranty. It was like in the paperwork, there was like dealership services fees. It wasn't related to like the actual service contract. It wasn't related to the warranty. It was like their salesman's commission or some goofy thing twice on there because 2 guys talked to me.
Right. So things like that, this is like to help couples have those questions. And the nice thing is because they're downloadable, you can save them as images onto your phone. And so a couple can just go through those questions quickly and make sure that they ask all of them that they feel are relevant. And so they know, like, it puts their mind at ease. So the same thing like with a caterer, you can ask them the questions around like, what does your service charge that's included in the contract cover? Does it include gratuity? Because what ends up happening is couples will go and they'll look at like 6 different catering contracts. One company includes their gratuity as part of their bottom line and one doesn't. And so you look at this and you're like, oh, well, this contract over here is $2,000 more expensive. But when it comes down to it, it's just because they've already tipped their people, whereas you're going to have to come up with the cash on the other one. And so people don't know to ask those things, and you wouldn't unless you're in and around this all the time. So for $4.99, people can download
$5.
Less than $5.
It's a $5
the cost
meal.
of a latte.
It's like a Five Below.
I know, right?
Kristine has their own Five Below store.
But I'm really excited because I've been thinking about, like, I'm only one person. And while I work with my couples and I like to give them a really lovely wedding planning experience, there are so many other couples that for whatever reason, maybe they can't afford a wedding planner or they're not in a position to bring one on, or maybe they just want to have a coordinator and they want to DIY a lot of this stuff themselves. Why shouldn't I, for a very small price tag, put this really great set of tools and knowledge in their hands to help more couples be stress-free for wedding planning?
They always say you pay for things with time or money.
Right.
And if you have a little bit of money, talking, $15 worth of money, Kristine can give you the tools you need to get the job done to save you time.
Absolutely. And on the horizon, I mean, it would probably not be coming out until my slow season. I'm pretty sure we're going to be looking at probably into the new year. I'm thinking of launching a wedding planning academy for people that are interested in becoming wedding planners. Yes.
Look at you. Well,
So
you are
an e-course.
But you are a professor. I mean, you can be a professor because you are a doctorate, right? So
but I'm not going to like give college credits, but I am a teacher by training. And so it would make sense. It does make sense for me to start figuring out how to create some educational courses for people that are wanting to enter into whether it's becoming a floral designer or a wedding planner. Why wouldn't I put together a course that people could learn and be able to like go out and do it on their own, right?
Kristine Smith Designs is taking over the world.
I know.
It's amazing. I'm so proud of you, babe. I really am excited for all these new things. I try working on a book of myself.
I know. You got yours almost done too.
Well, I'm working on, I'm still working on the formatting is always the hardest part for me because I get it all written down, but then it's like moving into one platform to another platform and trying to make it look pretty and all that stuff. And what's a PDF? I don't know, that kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if it's audio, I can knock it out. Which reminds me, are you thinking maybe putting out an audio version of your book, babe?
I wasn't because I don't have it recorded on Audible, but I don't know.
We have the gear and the technology to do that.
I don't know. I would rather just stick with the digital downloads, but let people study on their own.
But I was thinking about this the other day. Like, I mean, it's up to you. You don't have to do it. You don't have to.
I don't want to.
Okay, you don't want to. But I'm just thinking that, like, we already have the gear. You can record it and, like, put it as an MP3. It could be a digital download. Same concept, but in an audio form. Okay.
Thank you. No, thank you.
I try.
Thank you for offering.
You're welcome.
But, going back to your audiobook. So it really, you and I have been having conversations around, like, planning for the future and how do we set ourselves up for success and like looking at alternative forms of income that we can bring into our family to, increase just our financial stability. And I was really excited. Like we launched the book. I've already sold like 10 copies of it, which is very exciting. I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot, but
Wait, 10 copies?
Maybe only 5. I don't know.
Well, by the time this thing gets released, it's going to be like 10,000.
Yeah. But I'm
talking to you listening right now. You better buy a book. Better buy Kristine's book.
Have you bought a book?
Well, yeah. I don't know how to download anything.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know where the button is.
Yeah, sure.
I got locked out of my phone.
Yeah, sure. What's funny is I sent a link to my sisters and they bought it immediately.
Well, look at that.
And then I sent a link to my mom and she's like, the cover art is really cute because I sent her the image.
Right, yeah.
And then I sent you the link and you posted it everywhere, but you didn't even buy my book.
Hey, I work on a marketing, baby. That's my job. Marketing department.
You should buy a copy and support me.
I will buy a copy right now.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, okay, so I've taken up like the majority of our intro of our little banter, but I do want to hear what's been going on with you. I know you said you started writing this book, but what else has been new in your life?
Well, what's new is that I have been working on getting client interviews for my podcastic audio, podcast design services. What you call it, I guess, like that. But
it's very convoluted. You've been trying to get interviews, like you're trying to.
I had a few
meeting with new clients.
Yeah, I met with a few clients, but for some reason, I'm having a hard time like closing the deal. Like I meet with them, I talk, like great stuff. But the last client I had on, like she didn't even ask about the pricing at all. We just talked. I just basically had to go over what's a podcast, like from the basics, like how it all works, kind of explain that kind of stuff because she didn't really know. And then I even told her that like to kind of like sweeten the deal at the very end, closing the conversation. I said like, hey, you know what? I only can take on a small amount of people. So I'm just giving you the heads up here. If you want to jump in, jump in. But I wasn't really, pushy or anything like that. I was just saying that like, I mean, I can only take on a small handful of people. Mm-hmm. So I can't take on everybody. So if you want in, I will do everything for you. What I did tell her was she did get excited when I told her I would create the artwork for her. And she's like, oh, really? So I think for some reason, when people think of all the details go into creating a podcast, they get kind of overwhelmed by it all. So I do try to take that off their hands from. And also, I even told her, I even give you a microphone. I'll ship it straight to your house if you sign a contract. And not giving microphones out. I'm not Oprah Winfrey here.
Yeah.
I'm giving it to everybody.
You get a microphone. You get a microphone.
So anybody who signs up with me for a contract, I will ship out a microphone, brand new, straight to your house. Free delivery and everything. So it'll sweeten the deal. But like I said, there's got to be a cap on how many clients I physically can take because there's only so many hours in the day. And
right.
I'm just one-man team here,
Right. Totally. Well, I'm proud of you. And I know that you've been cold calling and reaching out and taking these different client meetings. And, it's just every small business grows in different ways. And I know that there's a community that really needs your services. So you're all listening right now. So, hey, you podcasters out there.
Or wannabe podcasters.
Or wannabes. Yeah. Wannabes. Thinking of bees. If you're out there and you're thinking about starting a podcast, Kris has a really great expertise and he'll guide you through the process. And so I know you have your podcast production services, but I was wondering, you have Podtastic Audio, which is a free piece, like a free way of giving advice. But have you ever thought of doing like an e-course that people can study and like learn from you about like the ins and outs of launching your podcast?
I have thought about that. It all takes that one thing that we all have very limited time itself.
Oh my gosh, Mr. I work 4 days a week. Okay.
400 days a week.
If I can do all of this and work 6 days a week, honey, We can figure out a way for you to get some of this stuff done.
Okay. Well, I'm working on it.
No excuses.
I have vacation time. I'll use it, wisely.
You have daytime. You can use that wisely too.
I know.
You can do this. I believe in you. I feel like, we're at this tipping point where there's so many good things that are in and around us that we just got to grab hold of them, and we're going to just launch into our future together.
Speaking of launching futures and grabbing hold of things, getting exciting and all that stuff, not there. But I'm saying is that I just saw on social media today that these two YouTuber kids, I don't know who they are.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
They somehow earned $71 million in 1 year, and they're 9 and 7 years old.
That's so crazy.
And here we are. What are we doing with our lives?
No, I don't think. I mean, look at how their success is defined in so many different ways. Look at how we've grown since we even met. Look at if you think of where our lives were 5.5 years ago, separately, and you look at where we've come together. I mean, it really is remarkable. I didn't know where my life was headed. I mean, of course, I was working and I was just starting my doctorate in USC when you and I got accepted right after our first date.
It's because I'm good luck, baby.
Yes, you are. So I didn't even have my doctorate at that point. You were working overtime every single week. And we've brought you home from having to work overtime. We have this booming business. We have multiple thriving podcasts and a radio station. We moved into our dream house. We have now started to travel. And I don't say all of this to brag or anything. I say this to remind people that you can change your circumstances when you're thoughtful and intentional about the way that you want to grow your stability financially. And I think that, coming up with the guest that we have on is going to be talking with us a lot about that. And it's something that you and I don't know, we're different. Maybe other couples do this. I don't know. But from the very beginning, from our first couple of dates, we've always talked about finances. And I don't know if that's weird or not, but it's just where we're at.
Well, if you think about money, finances and money in general is really the foundation to any family or any relationship to really build off of, because without, I know this might sound like a superficial thing, but without it, you can't buy a house. You can't buy groceries. You
can't provide for your family all the way.
Right. You can't provide for your family. You can't have a car to take your kids to school. Everything revolves around finances. And it blows my mind how some couples will get in a relationship and never know what the other one makes for a living.
Mm-hmm.
They just assume that, they'll take care of this, they'll take care of that, but they have no idea. It's crazy, but
right. And we've set different financial goals for ourselves, and we've been working on getting ourselves set up with our retirement. We always, are very open with talking through our bills, and if something goes on a credit card, what our plan is for paying it off. And, especially right after vacation, sometimes things get a little bit out of balance, and it's okay, recalibrate. What do we need to do? And then even we just do little checks for ourselves, little tune-ups. I even told you I was feeling a little bit my monthly paycheck, I wasn't super aware of where everything was going, and it seemed like it was just going away a little bit too fast. And so I just said to you, in full transparency, hey, I just need to monitor myself for a couple of months. I downloaded this this finance app that I'm using where I'm not going to necessarily say what it is yet because I'm still testing it out, and I don't know if I'm quite sold on it yet.
Of course, yeah.
But I'm logging all of my expenses, all of my expenses, so that I know where every penny goes. And what I've noticed is it's slowed down my spending because I have to write it down.
Oh, wow.
I'm making myself accountable for it. So it was so funny. I have to tell you this before we say who our next, what's coming up next is the other night I was sitting here at home and I was oh, well, actually I was driving home from a meeting. I was I don't really feel like cooking. What is it that I want to do? Maybe I'll just go through the taco shop and pick up like a bean burrito on my way home. I was like, you're going to have to write that down, Kristine. You're going to have to put that in your app that you went out to dinner and Kris just went grocery shopping and he got all of the food that you asked him for. There's no reason why you can't just go home and make yourself a pastrami sandwich or your mac and cheese, or I listed him to myself, or microwave your frozen ramen bowl or your orange chicken. Like I was listing like the different things and I was like, okay, go home and get yourself something to eat from home. Don't be lazy.
There you go. Yeah.
And I was like, oh. And then I came home and I did it and I felt better because I didn't like waste my money on something that I knew I didn't necessarily need to.
That's great.
And then I saved that money up to be able to like go towards us going out to dinner tonight. So all that to say, I think that talking about finances is really important for couples. And I'm really excited about the guest that we have coming up next.
He's a really great guest, talking all about finances and all about your money. Be back with him right after this.
Are you in the middle of wedding planning and feeling overwhelmed? There's no need to fret, my friend. Kristine Smith Designs is here to rescue you. Offering wedding planning, coordination, and wedding floral design services, let us help relieve your stress and make your wedding day dreams a reality. Visit us at KristineSmithDesigns.com. That's KRISTINE SmithDesigns.com and request a free consultation. You'll be so glad you did.
And welcome back, everybody. Today we have another fantastic VIP guest coming to us all the way from the land up north, Canada. Welcome to the show, Max Becker-Pos.
Thank you for having me. A pleasure to join.
Hey, Max. Hey, how's things up in Canada?
Canada, well, we still have the igloos. So,
At this time of year, huh? Middle of summer. Huh?
you know how far north we are. Actually, well, let's see, Vancouver, a few hours from Seattle. So I call my little LA North down here because I head to the beach every day, go for a swim. So there's even palm trees by the beach. I can imagine that I'm down south for a couple months.
Oh, that's amazing. I didn't realize that it's so warm. I think that people have a misconception about Canada because they think of it as, what they see on Hallmark Channel movies, or
that's what you see on Hallmark Channel movies.
Right, where it's frozen, like more like Alaska. But what is the landscape of Canada like? Because I know that the country is very large.
Yeah, well, most people do live pretty close to the border, which just makes sense economically and weather-wise. It's a little warmer. And over here, there's a lot of snow in Canada, but we don't get much of that in Vancouver at all. We're pretty much like, Seattle, Alaska. You go all the way up. It's pretty temperate, as they say. So we get a lot of rain. If you are dating yourselves again, if you go back to the X-Files, so David Duchovny did not want to film here anymore because he said it rained too much.
Oh.
And he had that kind of pole where he can move the whole entire studio?
I think he did, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Well, Max, have you lived in Canada your entire life?
Except for 12 years in Korea and Japan.
Oh, wow.
Wow, that's a little difference, It's a different dollar they use over there, too. They use the yen. What do you guys use in Canada, by the way?
We use the funny money. It's called the monopoly money.
Oh, perfect.
Is it really? Yeah, I know when I do transfer, I do send some money up to Canada. I got to help the cause out. And I do notice that it transfers on my PayPal to some weird different, it goes higher. It's like my dollar becomes 2 or 1.5 Canadian dollars or something goofy.
Oh, exchange rate is different.
Yeah, definitely.
Makes sense.
Exactly. Your money always stretches a little further down here.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, so you mentioned living in Korea and Japan for 12 years. What took you overseas?
Well, as young guys sometimes do, I followed a lady from Vancouver to Korea, and she'd been here studying English. And that didn't work out, but I did meet my wife in Korea. She is Japanese, so we met up because we were both students in Korea at that time. Then we ended up getting hitched, got married, had babies, then moved to Japan to be closer to her parents because we had twins for our first kids, and that was a double handful.
Right.
Yeah, and then I do have another story about how I ended up back in Canada. And those years were really formative for me, living in a different country. I don't know if you've done that. Have you done that before?
I've not lived in another country. I am a frequent international traveler and I love being in different cultures, but I think there's something different between tourism and habitation. So, what was your experience like living overseas?
Yeah, traveling as you experienced of all kinds is always great. I think you just get a lot more depth to it. You pick up a lot more nuances, and you start to see the way people think when you live abroad. And sometimes it's really deep seated. I guess we could get technical, but well, I'll give you just some of the things that are hardest to accept are the things that that don't matter in other countries. For example, it's quite rude in Japan if the serving person would come to your table at the restaurant and clear away your dishes, because that makes guests feel like they have to leave or hurry up.
Oh.
But over here, it's kind of de rigueur, like you're expected to come by and ask when the guest's mouth is full of food, how it tastes, and then clear the dishes away. So different expectations are hard to get used to. And then in Japan, nobody will hold the door for you because it's just not because they're being rude, but it's not part of their consciousness.
Oh,
Interesting.
so if I was to go on a date with a gentleman, like I would not expect him to open the door for me?
More like if you were to walking into a shop and another person was exiting, they wouldn't hold the door for you.
Oh, that's interesting.
I always do that, babe. I hold the door for everybody that walks by. I don't care who they are. Like, I'll wait for somebody to get to the door. I'd be sitting there holding it. Like, hey. And at one point, I'd be holding it like, today already. I'm holding this thing for you. Come on, hurry up.
Kris, do you ask for change when you're doing that?
like you're begging?
Oh, no. No, come on now. No, but they do give me some tips at times.
Yeah, like, button up your shirt, like that kind of tip.
Whatever.
Well, that's interesting that you notice those differences. I've heard from, I had exchange students in my household when I was growing up as a young person. We hosted people, teens from lots of different countries. And I would learn about, different customs and practices and things that were expected or not expected. And things as simple as at certain restaurant or in certain countries at restaurants, not tipping, like it's considered rude, or, not taking leftovers home at the end of a meal because it's considered rude. Things that are mind blowing to me that are part of our American culture that you just don't even think of. But I do have a question about living in Japan. Do people truly consume rice at almost every meal?
Traditionally, it's kind of like their staple and their livelihood. So, so traditionally it's like their main carb. Like for us, it would be bread or pasta. So I would say back in the day they would have, but now they eat quite a lot more bread and start to eat more pasta. And the rice growers kind of bemoan that fact and they say, hey, they're not eating as much rice as they used to, these young people.
So then how did you make your way back to the United States from Japan?
Yeah, great question. Well, I'll tell you what, if you know anything about, you're in California, so you've seen the real estate boom.
Right.
Over the last 20, 30 years. And back in 94, I did want to buy a condo in downtown Vancouver, which has just skyrocketed. We have now like some of the most expensive rents in the world. And my dad said that was crazy. So I never really learned about investing. And that would have obviously been a great idea to buy a condo here 30 years ago. My parents were really hardworking people and disciplined and devoted, and they gave me a really good life. And they knew how to make money, work hard, and save money, but they didn't know how to invest. So I never really knew about investing. And then if you remember the 2008 crash, around that time, I kind of got into stocks and playing around with that and said, hey, I want to do this full time. So what I had done in Japan was teaching English. So now I really segued to teaching finance. So I worked for a big bank in Canada for about 8 years. And that was great. That was really formative in terms of learning the industry, meeting all kinds of cool people, and learning about finances. I did find at the end of the day that being a big bank, they're just focused on transactions and products. And I really wanted to run it differently and wanted to put my clients first because, well, you run your own business and you know yourselves that people are at the foundation of everything. So I really wanted to put people first and
Right.
understand my clients and build those long-term relationships. And if there is a product that I can help you with, I will introduce that to you, but it's not the end all be all. It's more, who are you? What are you about? And what do you want to achieve? And that's what I've been doing the last 4 years. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. So growing up with parents that weren't maybe as savvy when it comes to investing, how did you start to change that for yourself in your own life?
I would say it started with this thing called Google and just learning all about stocks and trading and investing. And I think a lot of young people do that too now. They like to get on the internet and explore that way. So that with all the changes in technology, it became possible to start trading all your stocks. Your younger listeners might not know that, 40 years ago, you needed to call a broker to buy or sell a stock. And that was a person that would place your trades for you, right? So
Right, but
now
in 2008, 2009, didn't everything kind of fall down, like crash around that time? Like the stocks were like really low and a lot of companies went out of business, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was pretty tumultuous time. Yeah, a lot of stocks bottomed out.
Yeah, I remember. So back in college, around the year like 2000, I worked for Morgan Stanley Dean Witter as a file clerk and I had brokers that I worked for. And so they would get there, at the crack of dawn when the markets opened, like super early. And then we had, I think it was like, I don't know if it was like Wolf of Wall Street or whatever the movie was, where they actually have the pin in the center of the floor where you're like pulling, like the papers are going in and out regarding the stocks and the trades and things like that. And, after the market crashed, I think we saw a lot of that go away, and it became something that, people started doing on their own, but it's not talked about as much. So I don't even know. And I feel so dumb. I was an econ minor. I feel so dumb saying this right now. I don't even know how people go about like stocks and trading and things like that anymore. Do you just go onto one of those websites that's like etrade.com and just give them all your money?
You go ahead, yeah, exactly. Deposit money and then start to decide what stocks you want to buy and sell.
And so how do people know what's a worthy investment and where to put their money and when to pull things out? It seems like it could be so complicated for the traditional middle class, middle income family that's just trying to figure out how to save up for college for their family.
Yeah, the truth is most people don't know because you might get wins for a while, or you might be one of those exceptional people who can make gains year after year. But it's really hard to know not only what stocks to buy, but also when to sell them, because buying is the easy part. And truth be told, what I often tell my clients, if it were easy to make money in the market, then we'd all be quitting our day jobs, and that's what we'd be doing. It's not easy, and there's big fish who are swimming in the pond with you, all the large institutions that they're trading in it ahead of you and using your data to work against you.
No.
Yeah.
Man.
So then you stepped into this space, you started to learn on your own, and you were working for a bank and then made this decision that you wanted to start working with regular people, for lack of better terms. So what was that transition like for you? Is it like all of a sudden you branch out on your own and now you have 1 million clients and you're rolling in the dough? Or what was it like for you building your business?
I was kind of traumatic in the beginning because I fell out with the bank and we had a big difference of opinion. So I basically just kind of up and left. Yeah, I don't think corporate fit me anymore. It was just in a nutshell. Fortunately, I had a great network, so I was able to build my client base pretty quickly. And it took me a while to get a process to figure out how I wanted to run it. I think you probably experience that as entrepreneurs, and it takes a while to build that process.
Right.
And now really I just consider my clients as family. So, I'm available for my clients. If they need to get a hold of me, they can text me. They don't have to go through a 1-800 number or a chat bot. I like
That's
to
great.
send them.
That's great, man. Because I know that like you can't get that from a Bank of America or whatever bank you guys have,
Right.
or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like I said, they give you that chatbot thing, which is getting better because with advances in AI technology, it's getting pretty good. But you ask it the wrong question, it's like, do not understand. Do not understand. You get that loop over and over again. You're like, oh, just give me, or like just hit the button on the phone. You're like, give me the operator. Give me the operator.
Right. What a human.
Well, that's great, man.
So you've been in that field for several years now. And what are the services you offer to your clients?
What we offer is co-creating your future together. And that usually people come to me with a certain kind of pain point or problem. And actually, it's kind of funny you mentioned investing, because you know how when you walk into the supermarket and there's 51 kinds of cereal?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And probably you just want something healthy and whole grain for yourself, maybe something sugary for the kids, and maybe an organic option, right? You don't need 51 options.
Right. Unless you're
Just
Kris, he buys like 75 boxes of cereal.
I only
every
get the
shopping
one,
trip.
but I only get the ones that are on sale.
Yeah,
See,
so that's
smart investing.
That's
right
your
there.
criteria. Okay. But yeah, we're tracking with you, Max.
Awesome. Well, I would take that analogy and apply it to the world of investing, because there's a lot of talking heads out there on TikTok or any kind of social media program telling you what to buy and when you have to buy it and what stocks are good to buy. People feel really overwhelmed, like we're swimming in a sea of information, and people need options, right? It's kind of like, just what I would do is I'll understand you and what you want to achieve, whether you're low risk, medium risk, high risk, how long you want to build your money, what you want to do with your money. Do you want to buy a home? Do you want to travel a lot? And then I can help you create and craft that portfolio. So I'll give people like 3 or 4 options versus 51.
Mm-hmm. And that's really helpful, because when you have people like me and Kris that are super busy and know we want to get started with something, but don't quite know where to start, it's helpful to have a professional to give you some tips, because otherwise what I feel like ends up happening is the idea of investing or building generational wealth is something that stops at just being talked about, because you get decision fatigue or overwhelm. And then next thing you know, you look up from the couch and you're 80 years old and you never started that investment plan. And so then you're exactly at the same point where you started. And I feel like, especially for people like us that are in our 40 something range, Kris normally, he chimes in and normally says, "What? You're giving away our..."
I thought I was 25.
I know you are. But people that are in this range, so it's interesting we're having this conversation. So little window into my world. So last night, Max, Kris works nights. So here I am sitting on the couch, and I was thinking about estate planning, because I'm like, okay, we're in our 40s. We have one kid that just went to college. We have other kids that are still school age. Heaven forbid something was to happen to Kris and I. What happens with these assets that we have started to build up, because we have started to engage in some investing? We have a house. We have all of these things. And then I started to think about, well, that's great that we need to build like a living trust or something. But what about when the two of us are kid free in like 8 years, when the last one graduates? How do we have money to be able to travel the world? Like, we don't want to be so strapped financially that we're living paycheck to paycheck and having to wait till we're 70 to retire. And so it's like at some point you look up already, and I'm feeling like we're so far behind.
I think everybody feels that way, though.
You think so?
Yeah, well, it's in my line of work, in like the blue collar type of jobs, for the most part, that I've ran in circles I ran into. People are just working until they physically can't work, and then when they do retire, it's like second job or something like that, just to kind of keep things going, because Social Security isn't enough to live off of and so on and so forth.
And I don't want that to be my lifestyle. I want to be able to travel the world. So where does a couple like us with, still youngish kids get started with thinking about the future?
Well, you have to be ready, first of all, to take that next step. I think that would be the main thing. And you talked about decision fatigue. There's a lot of people who just kind of need that first step or need to take that first step across the metaphorical chasm or whatever analogy you prefer. I mean, recently I met a lady who she's been bartending like 16 years, and at the hotel they have a pension plan where you put in $5 and the company will match. So you put in $100 and the company will match that with a $5 contribution. So a 5% match, which is pretty darn good, right? To be able to get that kind of match. And then she hadn't taken advantage of that for 16 years. So, and she was so ashamed. Like, I wish I had, been taking some of this free money and getting it to work for me, because she has a daughter too, and she wants to create a good life for her kid. But I think, people just get into that kind of feeling that it's too late to make a change, and they haven't made a change, and they're never going to. Fortunately, she was able to start turning around and get that money to start working for her. So, I mean, that's a sort of a kind of way we would preface it. So, more for a couple like yourselves, you'd want to be on the same page as to be open to learning and finding out about yourselves and creating your future, like envisioning it together. And then, with that, then how do you want your future to look? And what are the steps? Sorry, I'm just I got a lot of thoughts
That's okay.
Running at me. Yeah.
It happens.
It would also be taking a deep dive into your current situation. Like, where are you now? Like, what does your debt situation look like? What is your cash situation? Yeah. How much are you negative every month? Are you positive every month?
Yeah.
And really drilling down into those values and finding out what kind of future you want to create for yourselves. And then using that to create a roadmap for your future financial plan. And they're kind of helping you allocate your money into the right places. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And so, follow-up question for you, Max. When we think about this process of getting started, because it can feel so overwhelming, and sometimes people feel like, well, I need to save up X amount of dollars to be able to get started. Is it a big buy-in to get started with some type of investment plan, or could it be as small as, not necessarily $5 or $10 a month, but could a family start off on the low side, $25, $50, $100 a month on something that is going to build towards a little nest egg in the future?
Absolutely, and I do work with that kind of people, because for me, it's not important how much money you have. It's important that you have a mindset of growth, of self-improvement, of learning, and being open to change. Because just imagine your parents had put $100 away every month when you were born, and what that would have been by the time you were 25.
And the interest rate on that would be quite a lot, I would think, too.
Well, just depending, because, there's building that understanding of there's a difference of putting $100 in a regular bank account with a very small interest rate from the time your child is born versus putting it into something that a financial advisor or financial planner is helping you manage. And, maybe it's a higher risk. It has, longer term, bigger payoffs. That's a huge difference. There's this gal that I watch. I'm not going to say who she is on Instagram, but she always is talking about building generational wealth for your children. And she gives a scenario of when your child is born, be like Beyonce and Jay-Z, who put their kids literally on the payroll of their business from the time they were 2 years old.
But you can do that?
Yeah, you can legally, so one of their babies was in one of their music videos and was an employee, so they were paid.
Got it.
And then they put that into a specific type of a fund. and continue contributing in that fund. And it's like how to make your kid a millionaire by the time they're 40 is like what her thing is. And I was thinking about that, like, goodness, I could, because I did contribute for my son to a bank account every month from when he was born. And I was excited when he was 18 to be like, look at these thousands of dollars that I've saved for you. And then I was like, what if I would have put that into something that had a growth factor to it?
So you put it in like a regular box, like a regular bank account with no growth at all? Nothing?
Well, just a regular, don't judge me.
I'm not
I
judging.
put money away.
I'm not judging. I'm saying, like, what's the difference between that and putting it under your mattress?
Well, I didn't touch it when it was under my mattress. I would have. But, once you learn better or learn more, you do better. And so I'm thinking, well, we have two other littler ones. Could I do something different for them that would benefit them more?
I think that's a great realization. And actually, if some of your listeners could get value out of this today, I think if there's anyone on the fence that, I never really saved up much, but I'm ready to start putting away $100 or $200 a month, but I feel ashamed to start talking to someone about that, then just, meet with a advisor or banker or someone who is approachable and willing to help you with that conversation. Because there's a lot of people that who kind of ignore my initial phone call when I'm reaching out to them, or and I said, well, what was the reason you weren't contacting me in the beginning, or I couldn't get a hold of you? And they said they didn't think they had enough money to work with me.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think about the listener right now that, maybe they're over 40, maybe finances aren't flowing as freely as they would like. And who knows, maybe they even do have a mountain of debt that they're sitting under. And there's some shame of, I can't think about the future until I pay off what's in front of me right now. What would you say to that listener who just feels like they can never get a leg up financially?
I think you need to get out of that fear space and get more into the opportunity space. So as humans, we're either expanding or contracting. And when we're in fear state, we don't see any hope or optimism. Like during COVID, everyone was just kind of hunkered down into their own shelter. Whereas when you're in that sage, when you're in that hopeful state, that optimistic state, you feel like anything's possible. So people need to have hope. I try to give people hope and let them feel they can turn their ship around. And that's also, you mentioned a self-limiting belief is, I'll get this done when XYZ is done. But life might not work that way. I mean, some people tend to always be in debt. Maybe you can start putting $100 a month away into a separate bucket. And once it's there, you might not even touch it. All the while, you'll be paying down your debt too. But at least you started something for yourself. So I recognize that in myself, like, oh, I can do this when I've done ABC, but that becomes a someday it never happens kind of thing. So we need to take action at the same time and get things going.
And from reading a bit about you, Max, I was studying up on you, reading your bio on your website, and your business, you refer to it as abundance wealth community. And so in reading about this abundance mindset, it seems like it aligns with that, is getting out of those self-limiting beliefs. Can you talk to our listeners a little bit about what an abundance mindset is?
Sure. We'll actually talk about the 3 words in my company's name. So abundance versus scarcity, right? You either believe there's more than enough for everyone, or you believe that there's not enough for everyone. And in this world of ours, do you believe that humans can create what we want and we can create unlimited food, electricity, or whatever resources we want? Or do you believe that there's a lack? So I believe that there's enough food, water, air, money, even time for everybody. But we often have these ideas that, I don't have enough of that. You could fit all the people in the world into Texas. It might not be comfortable.
Yeah.
But there is enough. There's still plenty of room in the world for everyone. Mm-hmm. So it's getting people to buy into that abundance mindset, because I want to help share that with everyone, which ties into the wealth. So the wealth is everyone should have 3 meals a day, a hot shower, a roof over your head, decent medical care, and good education. These are basic human rights, and these are things that we should all have. And then that community ties it all together, because with community, what are we human beings without our relationships? Like, our relationships is our superpower. It's what makes us human. And those, I often go back to this comic I read when I was a kid about an evil time machine or evil wish machine. And it would take your wish and twist it around. And so one guy wished for all the money in the world, and the machine teleported him to this distant planet with a huge pile of gold, silver, and cash. And he was all alone.
Oh.
So what would that mean if you didn't have the relationships, you didn't have the community? This community is really fundamental to everything we do.
Okay, this is hilarious that you just brought this up, because right before this interview, I was sitting at the kitchen table with our two youngest boys, and kids always have the funniest conversations. And so the 11-year-old asks the 13-year-old, he says, Jacob, would you rather have all of the money in the world or have teleportation powers? And so so it's funny that you brought up that exact scenario. And they were having a conversation about it, like which one is better to have. And then so the 13-year-old says, well, I'd have the teleportation powers, because then I could teleport into a bank vault and take any money that I wanted.
Yeah, that was a movie based on that, yes.
But it's interesting. And so then they asked me, Kristine, would you rather be able to run fast or fly? And I said, well, it just depends. Like, what speed am I flying? Am I flying at the speed of somebody walking? And if so,
are you afraid of heights?
Right. So we were talking about that. And the 11-year-old says, well, I would do the run fast, because then I could enter into a race and I could bet on myself and win, because I would win the race. And I said, well, you said you wanted to run fast. You didn't say you wanted to be the fastest runner in the world. So what if I get a wish and I wish to be the fastest runner in the world? I could beat you. So it's funny that you were talking about this, just, a little sidebar, but, it is that concept of, what is it that we want to create in life, and just abundance by itself or wealth by itself in the absence of community is not fulfilling, because, we see this all the time. There's millionaires around the world that are some of the most depressed individuals, because they haven't built their support system around there to actually enjoy.
Or a lot of them are just jerks,
Oh, right.
And they're just, grumpy butts.
Oh, like me, because I'm so rich.
Yeah. Well, it also goes back to the old, the classic saying is the glass half full or is it half empty?
And then money doesn't buy happiness, right?
It appears it can. When I say it appears it can, I mean, like, for example, like, I'm sure someone living in a 3-bedroom, big-size house is probably better than living under a cardboard box he found on the side of the freeway. It's one extreme to another, but
Well, there are studies done that you need a certain amount of money to be happy. Like, you have to have your basic needs met. So there's a big jump in happiness from, say, homeless to $40,000, $50,000 a year. Then there's another jump from, say, 50 to 100. I don't remember the exact levels, but then you get to that stage where you can start to have more leisure time and travel and things like that. And then there's another little jump up to about 150. But after that, people's happiness does not really increase when they add more money.
Right, because once you get above that point, you're looking at other factors for happiness, like what is the trade-off of the money to time and the money to being able to have flexibility and things like that. And so that's one of the things I've been pondering. So Kris and I, we've been having a lot of conversations around financial planning within our household, as, our business has started to become even more successful. And we've started to think about, okay, well, how do we put a little bit away every month so that, the business is helping to build towards long-term wealth for us as well. And both of us grew up with pretty humble means. And so it feels like we're changing the tape for what our kids experience in their lives, where we're starting to model more for them the conversations around, okay, you got your allowance. What are you going to set aside? Because we have vacation coming in 6 months, and trying to help them segment off and trying to help them with starting little bank accounts and things like that. But it is something that we haven't learned until we are adults, right, Kris?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up very poor. I mean, so we kind of lived in the scarcity mindset for forever. Like it's only so much of this, and when it's gone, we're dead because there's no more coming. No more coming. It's end of the road, and then and so I was always taught that, and I think in some regards, some government agencies will kind of beat that into, like, for example, here in California, we always have these rolling blackouts during the summertime because of energy. Oh, there's not enough energy to go around. And I look up and I see solar panels on everyone's roof and plenty of sunshine. I'm like, okay, if you say so. So it's kind of like, okay, whatever. But,
So with your work, Max, with families, I know that you work on the financial planning side, but what types of strategies and what is your approach to working with families to help them shift from that scarcity to the abundance mindset?
I would say helping them prioritize, because sometimes people don't know where to start. Should they start saving for vacation, for their kids' college, for their retirement? So as a parent, you're juggling a lot of those responsibilities. Education plays a big part as well, because here in Canada, there's free government grants you can get for your kids just by opening up an education account. So even if you don't put any money, you can still get money for your kids. So like in British Columbia, where we are here, any kid between the age of 6 and 9, as long as you apply during that window, gets $1,200 from the government. And there are a ton of low-income families who never take advantage of that benefit of that free money from the government. So helping people see that. Shifting people to abundance is really just helping them co-create that vision of their future, helping them, giving them encouragement, giving them hope. I give my clients a lot of encouragement. Like I was telling somebody yesterday, well, congrats, you started with $1,000 and now you have 8,000, and you did that in the space of a year. So I look at myself really as a coach in a lot of ways, and giving people that encouragement and that motivation. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's really helpful, is so people can understand that you're not going to be coming alongside them with a hammer like, oh, well, you're only at $100 right now. That's not going to make a big impact in the future. You really need to amp it up, versus being a cheerleader and a supporter and encouraging them to always think through what more might they be able to do as they continue to grow.
Totally. And you made a joke between the two of you about judging. And that's something I really try to do, is I try to judge. And I try to relate as much as I can to my clients. People come to me with quite a bit of debt sometimes, and they're really judging themselves about it. I definitely do not judge them about it. And then I'll share a story about, actually, well, I have debt because my kid is on the national team for figure skating at 18 years old.
Oh,
and
wow.
Yeah, and literally it's like $3,000-4,000 a month in coaching fees, ice fees, hotels,
Wow.
airfare. Yeah, so I've ran up some debts because my wife's dream is to get him to the Olympics. So it's either I kind of squash that dream and then pay down my debt, or build up a little debt and deal with that. So does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because your window of opportunity may not align with your window of opportunity for your debt to be taken care of, because things, it's like anything in life, really, because do we plan for that accident to happen? No. Do we plan to break that kid's leg off? Maybe if they're jumping off their bike off a cliff,
Yeah.
maybe. But I'm saying, like, things do happen, and then you have to like dip into that nest egg and kind of start all over. But the thing I was going to ask you is, when in regards to like the stocks and stock market and stocks type stuff, everybody has been jumping on this whole like Bitcoin and like those kind of things. Are those worth anything? Are they a bunch of like just a big fad that's falling apart?
It's kind of too early to know. Some of the major ones will probably survive, and those could be Bitcoin or Ethereum. and like the major names that you know, there's a lot of them that are just kind of worthless. And those are the sort of the sub penny coins that you probably know.
Right.
We'll find out, once we get an idea of the regulation and how governments want to treat it, what it will be like. But how do people decide something is valuable? Well, they do that by agreeing that it's valuable. Indigenous people, First Nations, they didn't think that gold was valuable until a white man came in and started mining their mountains for gold, and they realized, oh, it has a value to these white people, right? The American dollar is only worth something because everyone believes it's worth something and says it's worth something. So that's a really fundamental concept. And Bitcoin has value now because people agree it has value, and that will continue. It's still considered an alternative investment to get into coins, and this is still quite a bit of risk in it. Once you see like the major institutions, you've probably heard of companies like Fidelity or other fund managers. Once you see them having Bitcoin as part of their portfolios, then you'll know, hey, it's in the big leagues. But right now, it's still kind of speculative, so to speak.
Is it pretty high risk? Like, say you have a client come to you and says, "Hey, I want to dump like 90% of my portfolio into some kind of like Bitcoin kind of thing." May not even be Bitcoin. Say a knockoff
cryptocurrency.
Yeah, something like that. What would you tell them?
Well, we go back to that chat we had earlier about how hard trading is and how hard it is for us to make money at it. So I really encourage my clients to have a diversified portfolio. And once you've got that diversified portfolio as a base, then you can have your play money, your casino money, and then sure, if you have 100,000, take 5,000 and then put it on your favorite horses and see which one will win. Just imagine right in front of you right now, Kris, you're holding a pencil. Could you snap that in half for me?
Sure, just snapped it. I hurt my hand.
Right.
I just snapped it. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and that's what could happen if you invest in one specific stock or one specific coin. You're betting on one horse, and that could go bankrupt, right? You could lose all your money. Now imagine you're holding a bundle of pencils with a rubber band around them. Could you snap that in half?
Well, I'm strong, but not that strong, so I don't think so. Oh.
Right. So that would be your diversified portfolio. That would be like owning 100 or 200 stocks in one portfolio. And even if one of those stocks did really badly, it wouldn't affect that portfolio. So that's what diversification is. It's really creating that unbreakable portfolio and your unbreakable assets. And people, they need to start investing like that. A big mistake people make is because we always want a quick fix as human beings, we're looking at how do we get rich quick? How do we get rich overnight?
The lottery,
and that's
man.
why
The lottery tickets, man.
Yeah. Or those coins, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Those, because that's our ticket to getting rich. And the mistake we make is making outsized bets on those speculative and risky options in order to try to fast track that retirement ideal that we have of whatever, the 2.1 kids, the house, the rental property, and those travels around the world. So people don't want to hear it, but what people need to know is that investing is it's a marathon, not a sprint. And, Warren Buffett, we all know him, right?
Right.
He bought his first stocks when he was 11, and he held on to his investments for decades and decades. And now he's 92 and it's worth a lot of money. And how did he get there? Just by rinsing and repeating and doing those daily and monthly investments as steadily building his foundation.
So is it possible, Max, for a person that typically labels themselves as a spender versus a saver to change their relationship with money and end up in a place where they can be comfortable for their future instead of just letting the money all pour between their fingers?
Yeah, I would just say they have to be open to that initial conversation and then bridging with someone like myself. And once they've gotten to that realization that they're ready to have that chat, then it's just a matter of setting up buckets. Like, when you get paid from your regular job, your taxes and your social security, everything is already deducted off your paycheck, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're not really missing that money, right? They went to Uncle Sam and it's gone. Well, you can set up your investment portfolio the same. That every month when you get paid, you're putting $100 100 or 200 way into your portfolio, and you won't miss that money, just like you didn't miss your income taxes deducted.
Right. So it's interesting you say that because my financial planner, we just had this conversation a couple months ago because my son turned 18. And so my level of financial support for him has adjusted a bit. And so we were looking at my finances, looking at the whole picture. And she was telling me, if you were to take that money that you were putting away for your son and you were to instead now add that to your contributions for, because I'm in education, I have a tax sheltered annuity. She's like, if we were to just take that same amount of money and add it to your monthly contributions to your 403B, you won't even miss it. It's going to help you with your taxable income, and you're going to be saving that much more towards the future. And I was like, okay, I'm going to trust you on this, but like if I get my paycheck and it seems a lot different, like I may have a panic attack. And sure enough, because she'd worked out the numbers and knew exactly what it was going to be, I actually ended up with barely like $50 less after taxes, but now I'm saving hundreds of dollars more towards Kris's and my future. And it just feels so good because it's like, okay, well, that money, I was missing it all of these years. I was just going to add it back in, and then, who knows what it would have done, bought us some extra gas or, helped pay the mortgage. But now instead I feel like I took it and it has a purpose towards, maybe some dream vacation that Kris and I want to take in the future. I just felt so empowered, but I didn't know that on my own. So it was really beneficial to have an expert that could come alongside me and recommend that.
Oh, that's a great story. So you took your kids, the money that you've been providing him every month, and put that towards funeral retirement.
Right. Yeah. I increased my contributions. And because, when I was giving it to my son, it was after tax money, after I got paid. Now it's before tax money that's being put away. So it lowers our tax liability. It just, out of sight, out of mind. And, 15, 20 years from now, when I decide to tap into it, it's going to be more than the, couple $100 that I was contributing, which is great.
Oh, great. That's the value of working with a coach. Just like if you had a baseball coach, they would take a video of how you swing the bat, give you the analysis on that. A coach will help you see things you don't see. So yeah, I always tell my clients, you don't know what you don't know. So I'm here to help you with that, right? And open your eyes to some of the possibilities.
That's excellent. So Max, do you work with people only in Canada, or are you able to work with individuals throughout the US and worldwide?
Great question. So yeah, in terms of the licensing and legality and all that, I do work with people in BC. So just basically kind of like Europe, Pacific Northwest, that region of Canada. I'm happy to, bridge with anyone who wants to have a conversation because I don't charge for my time. So I'm always happy to share information. You can feel free to follow me on LinkedIn and see some of the stuff I post there. I also have a newsletter you can sign up for, and I keep that fun, fresh, and relatable. So kind of like that pencil analogy I gave you, I do a lot of things like that in my newsletter, and I take out all the jargon and try to make it funny because I think finance is kind of one of those serious topics. In fact, I remember at the bank when I worked there, a lady had an appointment with me, and then right after me, she was going to the dentist. So I was like, yeah, you scheduled all your painful things in one day, right?
Right, yeah.
Well, it's a real struggle because if you look at the divorce rate and the reason that people do split up, one of the top reasons other than infidelity is finances. And, I think that so many couples need somebody like you to be able to come alongside of them and help them really shift out of that scarcity mindset. I mean, really, you're saving relationships, you're helping to build futures and generational wealth, and helping people to get rid of the shame associated with debt to be able to change their circumstances. I think you're doing the Lord's work here, Max.
Good job, Max.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, I think a lot of us have our money scripts, and it's funny, how on talk shows people will get out and lay public their whole sex lives and things like that. But then if you ask your coworker how much money they made, they'd be like horrified, right?
Right.
Well, sometimes, yeah.
Unless you're Kris, who brags about
Oh
it
my
all
God.
the time.
Everybody in my work, they all brag or talk about how much we all kind of know what we make, but then everybody kind of like, well, I made this much this year. I made that much this year. And it's a game to them. I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." I always look at it as like, if I'm comfortable to live in a decent house, have a nice car, and travel to Hawaii and New York in the same week, I'm happy. You know what I'm saying?
Way to brag. Humble brag right there, Kris.
You're welcome.
Excellent.
Yeah. Well, so Max, where can our listeners find out more about you and reach out to you, follow you on LinkedIn and all of those things?
Yeah, feel free to follow me on LinkedIn, just my full name, Max Becker-Pos. And I don't really use IG or Facebook or other stuff that much. Yeah, mostly just LinkedIn. And then my website is there. It gives a really good idea of what I do. And that's abundancewealthcommunity.com. And yeah, I'd love for you to sign up for my newsletter. I don't sell anything in my newsletter. I just provide that info, and I try to kind of brighten up people's day when they read it.
Nice. Is it all on your website, the link to sign up for your newsletter?
You betcha.
Nice. I'll put that in the show notes of this episode. Just look down and there it is.
Well, Max, we want to say thank you so much for being on the show with us today and chatting with us a little bit about your background. We hope that for our listeners, it's helped you to reflect on not just your own current financial state, but your orientation around money and wealth and whether or not you're embracing an abundance or a scarcity mindset. And so, Max, thank you so much for these little nuggets of wisdom, and we wish you all the best.
Enjoy listening to podcasts and ever wonder, can I make a podcast? But it seems so complicated, and good audio production can take time. What if there was a way to create an amazing podcast easily? Well, now there is. Introducing Podcasting Made Easy from Podtastic Audio. My production team will handle your entire audio production, allowing you to be the star of your show. This is Podcasting Made Easy. How easy? Well, so easy, you don't even have to press record. Now that's easy. Your listeners are waiting. Let's deliver. Sign up for a free strategy call today at podtasticaudio.com/easy.
I really loved chatting with Max, and I really loved his conversation about like this abundance wealth mindset. I think that it's exactly what we were talking about right before we went into the interview, which is, we can't operate with this scarcity mentality like we don't have enough, because then it's going to feel like we're always in desperation. I think that's what you and I have been trying to do, is think of other opportunities to generate wealth for our family so that we can just give our kids the best possible opportunity for the future.
Well, I have a question about that. When you mentioned about like chasing, not necessarily chasing things, but building wealth and building things, I wonder if the spending gets kind of out of hand when you're chasing what the neighbors might have. The old saying, keeping up with the Joneses,
Mm-hmm. Or keeping up with the Smiths.
Or whatever. Yes, however it goes. But I kind of wonder about that. I remember, in fact, I was called out on that in my last house or our last house, I should say, because I had the car and sports car in the house and everything else too. But although I did have the nicest house on the block and the nicest cars on the block, and someone said, you're just catching up with the Joneses. I'm thinking, well, I am the Joneses because I have the nicest stuff in the block. So I don't know how that would be. I was just talking about something else.
Right. But that's exactly what they're saying is, why do you have to be that? Why do you have to have all of that?
I enjoy it. I don't know. I mean,
right, but
I enjoy a nice house, and that's why I sold the car. I don't have 2 cars anymore. I sold one.
That's the thing is, I would say when we got together, there was that thread of trying to prove yourself like you made it. And I don't know if that's because of like what you've been through as an adult. And I was on the opposite side where I'd lost so much through my first marriage that I was just trying to rebuild and like stay financially stable. And I'm not like trying to compare us. I'm just saying that when we got together, we had to have a lot of conversations around like, what is this going to look like for us? Because now we're bringing 2 households together, 3 children together, and expenses are going to be a lot different. Like, what are we trying to do? And, so we did like little improvements to the house and things like that. But we could have bought this house and then been like very frivolous and, put very little down or, tried to, buy new cars with the profits and things like that. But we tried to be super conscientious and put a big chunk of money down on the house so that we could continue to afford it and, look for other opportunities to earn income so that we aren't like mortgaging our life on credit cards.
Oh, yeah, definitely. A lot of people do, and especially with the high interest rates and the high cost of living and the inflation and all that, not so great stuff that's happening right now.
Yeah.
It's hard for some people to stay afloat. And I do know that we're all thankful for our jobs, and we do get paid quite a lot of money considering, but then you're considering the fact of inflation and the interest rates, it doesn't feel like it's a lot. And I know that some places like in Texas or some places like maybe Alabama or some small places where they get paid like half
Right.
if we make, for the same kind of job.
It's my parents raised us with this saying from the Bible, and it's like for those like to be trusted with more, you have to be a good steward of like what you have. And I'm not quoting it properly, but it's like you have to be a good user of, like, let's say that you're broke, or like not broke, but like you're living on a really tight income or you have a small income. Like, being faithful in the small is what's going to make way for you to be able to be faithful and a good steward when you have more. And it's that same mentality, like people that are in debt or overspending when they have a small income, those same habits transfer when you have a larger income. And that's why you'll see people that make these really large paychecks. Like, we've talked about the NFL stars that, they'll be destitute by the time that they've retired from the NFL because they get accustomed to a lifestyle. And I feel like there's so much of that in the American way of life is this, like, I don't want to say greed necessarily, but like having it all, quote unquote. And I'm okay with not having it all.
I don't want to have it all. I just want to have nice stuff.
Well, that's the same thing.
I want stuff to work. I want to turn the car on and it starts.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
And I want to be able to drive it down the road. I don't have to worry about a flat tire or breaking down. I don't have to worry about like it rains and all of a sudden there's leaks in every room of the house flooded.
Yeah.
I don't want to worry about that stuff. I want to be able to like have peace of mind that stuff's kind of like taken care of. I think it's right.
Peace of mind is different from like living with this, well, I don't look at price tags kind of mentality. And so, I've been looking around our house and I've been like very, very grateful for what we have and just really humbled that in transparency, when we look at where my life was 8 years ago, and this was, before you and before, well, right at when I split from my first relationship, my first marriage. And I was like broke. I mean, broken, I guess would be the reality of it. And I thought, like, I'm never going to financially recover from this. I would look in the mirror and I would be so overwhelmed. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get out from this financial mess that I was left in. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what other opportunities I'm ever going to have. Like, this is as good as it's going to get. And I felt very hopeless. And now I look around and it's like, gosh, man, I mean, it's taken 8 years of hard work. And I know for you too, you've gone through a lot and it's taken a lot of hard work and making tough decisions about, when people are buying these big things or going on big vacations, like, not being able to say yes to those things because we have other responsibilities. And now,
or going to a concert that's $500 a ticket,
right?
For a family of 5, I do the math on that.
Yeah, and so just for anybody out there that's listening right now that may be in a tight financial spot, like just know that there's hope. There's a way to be able to navigate around that there's opportunities to get yourself onto the other side of it. And we know it's not always easy, but it's going to be worth it. And so, whatever it takes, reach out to somebody, a finance professional that can help you make your way through whatever your financial situation is right now. And, like Max was saying, it's, when we start talking about investing, some people, he said it, like people sometimes don't reach out because, they are in debt and they don't want to get help starting to invest in things until they get their quote unquote financial house in order. But start small, like start with the cost of a latte, like $5 and, $20 and $30. And then it starts to add up. And before you know it, you're going to have this whole different way of being, and you're going to help break that curse of generational poverty for your family.
Amen. That's great words of wisdom from Dr. Kristine here.
I was there on my soapbox right then, right?
You are high and mighty.
Well, thank you. And thank you to everybody that listened in today. I really did love talking with Max, and I'm really passionate about like helping families figure out how to get on the right financial footing. And so please definitely check out our show notes. You're going to link everything in there, right, Kris?
Absolutely.
And we're going to leave information about my new book for Kristine Smith Designs, my ebook, and all of our resources. And Kris, where can people find out more about us if they're interested in learning more about you and me?
Oh, yeah. Go to our website, which is chrisandchristineshow.com. There's a link to it in the show notes.
And thank you so much for listening. We'll be back with you
next week.